Alright guys, so today I wanted to talk to you guys about Dragonriding. There's been a lot of talk about maybe Dragonriding is the best feature ever added to World of Warcraft. And I think that's kind of a bit of a loaded question. I think there's several reasons why Dragonriding is amazing, for sure. And I do think that I personally am a really big fan of the system. But yeah, like I said, I think it's really important that we talk about why it's good and not just say that like it is good, you know. So kind of first off, it's fun. So a big part of player enjoyment is understanding what players like, right? And there's a huge amount of players out there, players who play a variety of video games that enjoy mastering content. As a game designer, that's like one of the like core principles of like what players enjoy. And with Dragonriding, it is fun. You get to like learn to min-max your momentum a little bit. There's techniques that you can use to help make it smoother and kind of like make it easier to get around. And then as you're going through, it takes about an hour and you can level it up fully. And you get better and better and you're able to do more than you were before. So it just feels really good. You feel like you're mastering the content. They have things like these dragon races, like the video that you're seeing above in the background. And they have dragon races in every single zone for the new expansion. And then they also have the advanced dragon races too. All of these things help make you feel like you're mastering dragon riding. So it feels fun, it feels good, it feels really engaging during the time that you're doing it. So that's number one. The second thing, functional. It is functional. We have never really had access to flying before. I'll go that over my next point at the beginning of the expansion. But basically, the idea of flying in an MMO like this and like in WoW is that we use it to get from one place to another. It has to be better than what we had before for it to be a success and considered that way by the player base. And it is that. So currently with Dragonriding, you go 800% movement speed increase, which is great. With our previous flying mounts, the max speed was 310%. So it is a pretty significant increase in our speed, meaning that, you know, there's going to be pieces of content we need to get to, whether it be dungeons or raids or maybe a world quest out in, you know, a different zone or whatever. We can get there faster than we could before. So again, as a functional piece of content and design, very well done. Like I mentioned previously, flying has always been a really big grind in new expansions. The last time we had flying relatively early, I believe, was either Mists of Pandaria or Wrath of the Lich King. And Wrath of the Lich King is the one I'm more familiar with, but basically once you got to level 70, so you got to the max level, you could just basically buy cold weather flying, and then after that you were good to go. And that was really great, and a lot of players really liked that. Since then, Blizzard has moved to a more controlled model. They want players to explore the world in a certain way on the ground. And so what has happened is they have created a series of achievements and stuff like that that you have to do before you unlock flying. These achievements also end up usually being attached to the, you know, X.1 or 0.2 patch. So instead of having it right out the gate like we have with dragon flying, players have to wait, you know, 8 months, a year and a half, and then after that they have to do dailies for multiple weeks to unlock the achievements that they need for flying. In this case, these Pathfinder achievements would give a count-bound flying, which is really good. Like we see here with Dragonriding, it's also a count-bound. But when you're talking about dailies for weeks on end, you know, sometimes I believe in Legion, it was like 2.5 weeks or something of doing dailies, and that was in the second patch of the expansion. Regardless, you know, we're talking about months, and then you're waiting weeks on top of that, and that just never felt good. players have never liked the system. It always felt really forced. It just felt like Blizzard was like putting you on a rail system. Here is how we want you to play our video game. And that never felt good. That doesn't feel good for an MMO player at all. The glory of the MMO, really, is that you get to kind of play your way. There's lots of different avenues to do what you want. Maybe you want to chase down professions. Maybe you want to do dragon riding. Maybe you want to go for the hardest raid bosses. You know, you get to choose how you want to play. And that's always been like at the core of the MMO player base. With things like Pathfinder achievements and stuff like that, they kind of took away from that. They're like, you have to do this, you have to check these boxes, and then you're allowed to fly, which never felt good. So the fact that we have access to dragon riding right off the bat is a fantastic change, and I hope they move forward with that kind of system in the future. It's also really nice that, you know, it is a grind. You do have to max out dragon riding. It takes about an hour if you go and do it, and you can do it from the start. So, you know, you don't unlock the whole thing right away, but I can kind of see why they wanted it to be some amount of progression, to be kind of, you know, you're slowly getting access to these different skills and things like that. But at least you only have to do it once, and it only takes about an hour. So I think that that's a pretty good compromise. The important thing here is that, like, they're actually coming back on their philosophy, on how they want you to play, and they're kind of allowing you to play the way that you want by giving you access to flying much earlier. So I think that that's actually a really, really good thing. Like, when we don't have to do things the way that the developers want, I think that's always going to make the game feel better. And lastly, like, community interaction. So you're seeing the background footage here is showing all these different dragon races and stuff that I'm doing. These different dragon races, like I said before, they have regular versions, they have advanced versions, and then there's even ones that are done for world quests, and on top of that, there's ones that are literally done for the community. So you go up to the guy and you sign up for it, and then when it gets enough, it teleports you back, and you all start the race together. So you can go and you can race with your friends, or you can race with random people. Stuff like that is really, really important for MMOs because it makes the world feel larger. It makes the world feel alive, like you're not the only person there. And that's one of the big like things that people get drawn into with an MMO, is that you are playing with other people. And it should feel like that. You know, one of the reasons why players didn't like systems like garrisons and stuff like that was because it made you feel very walled off from the rest of the world, the rest of the players on your server. And the reasons why, same reason why people didn't like layering. They felt like there wasn't enough people in each layer for their server, and that oftentimes they were playing in an empty world. That doesn't make people feel good. You want people there, you want people flying around and doing stuff. That's the goal. Alright, so as much as I like all these different things, and everything that I said before was all good, there is a bit of a negative here. So the bit of a negative is that they decided to only do it for the Dragon Isles, which is the new areas for the new expansion. The thing is that when you go back to older content after doing this, and you go back from 800% flying speed in Dragon Riding to 300% flying speed, or 310% flying speed, sorry, on our old flying mounts, it feels awful. It just does. And right now, with the Mythic Plus system, we actually are having to do that. So we have to go back to older expansions like Legion and stuff like that, and then get on our old flying mounts, and then fly our butts over to the dungeon that we have to do, and then doing it there. Every time I do that, it feels worse. This system really needed to be implemented in a way where it was considered like Mounts 2.0. That would have been my biggest piece of feedback had I been able to experience it before launch. And the thing about it is that they already have a system in-game where you can opt into certain features with your mounts. So a perfect example is the mount equipment system. We have a system that's literally designed to give your mounts different functionality. One of those functionalities being, I use a, it's like rubber boots or something, but basically it's a mount equipment that makes it so my mounts can run on water. This would have been a fantastic place, a dragon flying or dragon riding crop or something, or a dragon riding saddle or something like that that enables dragon riding. A lot of people were speculating that the reason why they didn't add it everywhere was because they were worried that not everyone would like the new system. So if you don't think everyone will like the new system and you want it to be an opt-in, the mount equipment would have been a perfect example of what to do with that. It doesn't necessarily have to force everybody into the new like mounts 2.0, but we should have the option to fly dragon riding in the old world. There's really no reason that I can see that we don't. The only reason I see is that they can't market it as a dragon or a dragon flight feature if it's everywhere, right? So it does feel a bit weird, feels a bit clunky, like maybe they kind of didn't do us a solid there. So that's a bit unfortunate. I hope that that's what they do in the future. I hope they give players the option to opt into dragon riding everywhere in all of the World of Warcraft. So going back to the start of the video, is it the best feature that's ever been added to World of Warcraft? No. Like, I don't think so. It's a great feature, it really is. But is dragon riding something that's going to make you buy the new expansion? Is dragon riding something that's going to keep you engaged enough that you're going to keep paying a subscription? No. Right? Like, players play WoW specifically, and MMOs in general, for the actual content of the game. Maybe they like leveling up characters and trying out all the different specs. Maybe they really like doing dungeons. You know, the Mythic Plus system in World of Warcraft's pretty good. It got a nice revamp. Maybe they like doing the hardest raids, or even just regular raids, or maybe just hanging out with their friends in Raid Finder. You know, there's lots of things that will keep players in an MMO. Dragon riding is not one of them. So I would not say that it is the best new feature. I would say it's a fantastic feature. I really, really like it. But ultimately, those other things I think are much more important and much more valuable to the game and the player base at large. Before we go, I also just want to talk about it a little bit from a developer standpoint. So dragon riding still does have a little bit of that same philosophy that they had before. They want people exploring the world. They want people to go out and see the great like art and design that these different like region makers and stuff like that made. Like the zones and everything look amazing, and you get a really good feel for that when you're actually flying through. You know, there's a lot of really cool trees they add off of the edge of like a cliff and stuff like that, and suddenly that's an obstacle in your race. But I think more importantly than that is that when you're flying around the Dragon Isles, you just look around, like you'll see in some of these clips that like the verticality difference in this expansion is honestly incredible. Like, hopefully you guys can see in some of the background clips, these mountains and stuff like that, when I'm flying all the way up into the air, like, we are going really high to the point where we can't even see the ground anymore, and we're like only halfway up some of the tallest mountains in these zones. Like, it is honestly incredible the amount that dragon riding and flying in general has opened up the possibility of building up, right? Like, I think in a lot of previous expansions, the designers were feeling like they couldn't do that, right? It's usually like a plane and then like a flat area like a plane, and then like there's a ramp over on the left or something, and then go up that ramp and there's another plane, right? And so they got to, I think, really like let loose their sails and just like start making crazy towers and making crazy mountains that all have different elevations. Like, it's honestly really cool to see. And I think you know, it's really opened up the space for developers to make really cool content, and I'm really, really glad to see that. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. You know, I think all this stuff was honestly, you know, mostly positive. Dragon riding is a great feature, and I'm really happy that they put it in the game for sure. I hope they expand on it in the future as well, you know, adding it to the old zones and stuff like that. but it is a really great system. But I think it's a really great system because you're not doing it all the time. You do it between dungeons, you know, like I'm flying from one dungeon to the next or flying to my next world quest. I'm gonna dragon ride over there really quickly, you know, in like a minute and a half. But realistically, if you're doing it for long periods of time, it would get maybe a little boring. It's fun being able to go out. You know, I just picked a day and I went out and I did the dragon races in one zone, and then I put it down for a little while and I did the other content in the game that keeps me engaged. And I'll go back to the dragon races at some point, you know, when I have some downtime and want to enjoy a little bit of like solo content with the nice little music in the background. But it's ultimately not something that's going to keep a player in the game. So yeah, I don't think it's the best feature ever added, but it is a really great feature. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.